you not wanting to go out the door and overcoming your little inner voice and conquering yourself and conquering the self discipline to go out the door when you don't want to, or to come and keep going with your run when you don't want to.
Created live on Fireside.
Welcome to Athletic Definition. I'm your host, Coach Ray Z, and this is Athletic Definition Sports and Fitness News, covering what's trending in sports and fitness around the world today. I'm excited. We're going to be covering a lot of topics today. We're going to be covering boxing, the ADCC, some NFL, Peloton news, wearable technology, plus lots more. So be sure to stick around till the very end, as I have not covered all the topics in the very beginning, just giving you a little slight preview. I'm going to get started with the ADCC, which is a large jiu-jitsu tournament that just happened this past weekend. This past weekend was action-packed with NFL Sunday. Then we had the Canelo and Triple G boxing fight, which I'll comment more on that one later. And then as well as the jiu-jitsu tournament. And it was a grand spectacle. It had entrances like you would see on a main event for boxing or UFC or even WWE. So it had the grand entrance, the music. They even had Michael Buffer do the announcement for the fighters. It was the anticipation was building, and they had, I think, Kenny Flourier, and it sounded like another voice that sounded familiar, maybe Dominic Cruz, who were doing the play-by-play announcement. And in the grand finale, Ryan Gordon versus Andrew Galava. Uh, and it was a very entertaining fight. You can watch it on YouTube. I'll put it on the show notes. In the ADCCs, what they do is they give no points in the beginning, and which is good to me because sometimes people will just stall. So it makes it be more action packed. I don't think I've ever seen anybody withstand a body triangle for so long and then have one arm tied up. So basically, a body triangle is someone has your back, and just picture a figure four around your waist. And what Ryan Gordon did was he trapped Galava's arm, and basically he was trying to choke him, two arms against one. And I've never seen anyone be able to, for that long a period of time, defend themselves and avoid the choke for so long. I've been in a body triangle plenty of times, and I don't think people have any idea of how much that takes out of you, how much wind it takes out of you. By the time, if you can break out of it, you're pretty much exhausted and dead. It was very entertaining. I like to see the sport getting bigger and bigger, and we'll see if it continues to grow. Even though they do change the rules a little bit at some points, if you know nothing about the sport, I could see how the amateur person, thinking back to when I didn't know nothing, they're gonna see it as a just guys wrestling, but they don't understand the technical moves that are being performed, which is in wrist control and just placement of the head, placement of the knee shield, everything. That way you can keep the control and not lose your dominant position, or how to protect yourself while you're not in a dominant position. I think as the sports grows, we will definitely see it grow more, and hopefully it will become more mainstream. I would definitely like to see more people take this sport up. Moving on to the Washington Post, it says that Florida students are now going to be training in Tom Brady's controversial fitness program, which is called the TB12 method. And I've heard of it, but I've never done it, and I've never really got into it too much. And I kept wondering why they kept calling it questionable. Overall, if you think about it, Tom Brady is 45 years old and still playing in the NFL, which I believe is a record, at least for that position. And actually, I think maybe someone has played longer, but I don't think they played like hit the type of storied career he has. So one of the knocks on it was that it works for a professional athlete, but what about for the average person? If you saw his combine picture, you would see his body frame, and you would see that he doesn't have that athletic build. And I don't know if he was born with those genetic athletic gifts, but he sure seemed like the average person from the combine picture. And through his, I know he eats very clean, his supplements, everything else that he recommends. People are also knocking him because he was recommending like electric foam rollers, and he's selling them on his website, and then supplements, and he's selling them on his website. I don't see the difference between him and Gronk. Gronk has a website where you can buy fitness equipment, sleds, bands, and I really don't see what the difference is. because, well, I guess you're teaching in public school, but some of the things being taught to public school students in the past have been incorrect, such as the pyramid of food group, and then even the inspiration for, let's say, a bunch of the teachers who grew up liking Michael Jordan, and then they got the book by the trainer. I can't think of his name right now, who trained Michael Jordan. Well, that trainer put in that Michael Jordan did box jumps, which Michael Jordan never did box jumps from the time he started training him. So that was something that has caused a lot of injuries, and I guess that's some of the main controversy. It's on the Washington Post. I'll link it if you want to read more into it. And then his trainer, the body trainer, that his last name is Guerrero. He has some questionable backgrounds. I think in an infomercial he played a doctor. I don't really know if that's considered against the law if you're just acting. And he got in trouble. People looked into it. Then he also, I think, promised a couple like he did some claims on certain products that I don't think it was had any scientific backing. So his background's a bit questionable. But I gotta say, if it worked for Tom Brady, it's worth to try it out. And I always stick to Bruce Lee's method, which is takes what is useful and disregard what isn't. And then Mark Zuckerberg is taking up MMA, which I already mentioned that in a past episode. And it says he's taking it up while he's losing $70 billion. Ever since I did the post about Zuckerberg on my Instagram, I've gotten less and less reach. And I really haven't posted since. One is because I was injured. And then when I finally came back, I posted about him. And it seems I was getting a small shadow banned or being put in Instagram jail. So for now, I haven't even reposted, even though I am training again. I'm just kind of over the whole Meta and Instagram. I'm just not really feeling it anymore. And I think that that's part of the reason why he's losing so much money. I think that when the leaks came out of them knowing the damage that they were causing to teenagers and they kept going all for profit. And then when people kind of really realized, hey, he's taking our information and selling it to us, that's part of the reason why they're losing money. The other thing is that since he is training in MMA and before that he would do running, he's selling you Oculus and he's selling you the metaverse for you to work out because working out is one of the bigger video games, multiple video games, the boxing one, the I forget the other one, but they're workout games. He's not working out in VR, and I wonder if he allows his kids to work out in VR, just like Steve Jobs didn't let his kids have an iPhone. So Zuckerberg doesn't work out in the metaverse, but he wants you to work out in the metaverse. And I always think that if you're gonna try and get someone to do something, it's always better to lead by example. But he doesn't do it. He says he prefers MMA. Running, according to him, was too difficult because he could still think. I say, wah, that's that is what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be challenging. You not wanting to go out the door and overcoming your little inner voice and conquering yourself and conquering the self discipline to go out the door when you don't want to, or to come and keep going with your run when you don't want to. But of course, me doing jujitsu and some boxing, I do understand what he's talking about. That when you're someone's punching you in the face, or when you are trying to avoid a choke, you don't really have time to focus on anything else, and you really are present. So if you get a chance, be sure to go out and try some martial arts or self defense for yourself. And you let me know what you think if you prefer the whole metaverse boxing or real boxing. I think Joe Rogan was mentioning he did like the metaverse and he worked up a sweat, but I haven't really tried it myself. We'll see. The news came out that Floyd Mayweather says there's going to be a rematch between him and Conor McGregor in 2023, and they're looking to go kind of like they did last time, which was in May. So they're looking for May 2023. No word yet if it's going to be an exhibition or a real fight. Mayweather says he'd rather do exhibition, something where he's not really going to get hurt. I want to know from you, be sure to drop in the comments. Would you pay once again to see Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor fight each other again? I think that the average person, the average Joe, is going to pay for this again. I definitely wouldn't. I think that Mayweather took it easy on him. I think that he could have put Conor McGregor out a lot sooner. I think that fight went for $100. I can imagine what they're gonna want to go. and charge the fans for on this one. I remember Chael Sonnen, a former UFC fighter, saying that that arena wasn't sold out. And we all know that Mayweather buys a lot of tickets for his family. And I'm sure Connor did too. So if you take that and the arena's still not being sold out, they definitely did good on the pay per views. But I don't think that the hype is around them like it was before. I think Mayweather is going to be 45, and all he has been doing is exhibition fights. And Connor has fought since he broke his leg, and even before that, basically, uh, what is his name? I can't think of his name right now. The guy who always wore the hat, who's retired ever since he basically spanked them in jujitsu. Conor McGregor, in my opinion, has been exposed and has never been the same, and I don't think will be the same moving forward. Peloton, I ain't mad at you for trying to stay relevant. During the whole pandemic, Peloton bike sales went up dramatically. It was the new trendy thing to do. Plus, you really couldn't go to the gym, and typical, regular, normal bikes for mountain biking or street biking what rose up in price if you didn't have one already. So they're trying to stay relevant. They have teamed up again with United Health Care, which is one of the larger providers in insurance. And they basically, it's going to depend on your coverage, but you can check with the insurance if you happen to have them. You can get like a 1 year subscription for free as part of the Peloton, and we'll see if that'll keep them around. I could think since then they lowered the price of the Peloton, they hired the price of the Peloton, they have raised prices on subscription. I believe they fired the CEO or got a new CEO, and still people I think would rather get back to their old ways than to ride the Peloton. I've asked polls of people still riding their Peloton. They've told me yes, but it seems like majority of people aren't. And maybe Peloton's finally giving up on the whole bike model and decided to expand because now they will be coming out, looks like in 2023, with their first rowing machine. The rowing machine is going to have a 24-inch swivel touchscreen with different instructors, new programs. I would assume that they're not going to give you the same programs for the bike, it would be completely different. This rowing machine, of course, it'll have an app, customized analysis, but it's going to cost you around $3,000 plus subscription. I wonder if they're going to do like a combo where if you have the bike and then you have the row machine, if you get a deal, if you want a subscription. To me, just having those two, like let's say you want to build a gym in your home, would you want to get a $3,000 rowing machine and then a Peloton bike that's maybe another, I think, what, a couple grand? So you're looking at about $5,000 plus subscription just to have a rower and a bike. Not me. I could think of a lot more effective tools and fun tools that I can spend with 500, no, $5,000. But you let me know. Would you buy this rowing machine, or is that something that excites you? Wouldn't you want it to do more for $3,000? Be sure to drop comments and I'll be sure to mention them next time. And wearable technology, there's so much new technology coming out that I first was kind of looking into the Apple 14 phone because the new phone is supposed to have satellite connection, and most people probably don't care about that. But if you're an avid runner, hiker, or you go into trails, you could be up there for hours. And a lot of places don't have signals. So with this new emergency feature, it basically can help you make an emergency call or text someone through the phone because of the metal plates in the very top. There are additional, think I can't think of the name, but it's by Garmin. You can pay, I think it's like $60 plus a subscription, and it'll basically do that where you can text and things. But this is kind of built in. So once I kind of started looking into that, I heard about the new Ultra Watch. I'm still old school. I have the Series 3 Apple, so I don't have the new one, but I was looking into all the new features. I think they're up to Series 8 right now. And that one, let's see, the lowest one I think was the Apple SE. I think it ranged at 249. I think this one or the 8, I think was around $500 price point. And then the new one, the Ultra, is at 749 or 799. It looks very cool. Some of the main features that I saw is that it can really withstand extreme temperatures, being I think under 0 degrees Celsius, it'll still keep functioning, and it can really go up, I think, up to 130 or 140 in heat. Whether you're running, let's say, Badwater ultra marathon, you can, uh, be sure that your watch is going to keep tracking and it doesn't overheat. Also, it is diver certified. So if you're big into scuba diving and swimming with it, Ironman training, I really don't know what they mean by certified diver, if that gives you some sort of extra warranty on it or not. But I'm sure that that's a plus if you're into that. They added extra microphones so that you can be heard during any extreme condition that you may be in, whether it's wind or on the commercial, they show a guy like in a blizzard and he's able to call. They also added a touch button just for activity on this and the older watches. When you start any sort of activity, there's a little counter. So it goes 3, 2, 1, and then you can start to run or walk or whatever exercise you're doing. But on the new one, you just hit the button and it starts tracking. It's supposed to automatically, I think, I'm not quite sure, but from what I read, is it has a back feature. Uh, so if let's say you went out too far and you kind of got lost, you can backtrack your way. The review that I was watching, the guy said it didn't work that one time. He tried it, but it was still fairly new watch to him. So I really couldn't give you much more information on that. And then besides that, it's supposed to have longer battery life, maybe about, I think they said, couple days, which would be maybe 48 hours. I also know it will depend on how many apps you're running at the time. And then if you go, I think, on battery saving mode, then you're kind of losing some of the accuracy of your GPS, which kind of would defeat the purpose. I think overall, it's a great watch and I would love to have it. The only thing I would say is compared to like Garmin, which the price point of those watches for designed specifically for athletes are about the same, but the battery life on those is just incredible. Or the other brand, I think it's called like Quartz, or I really can't remember the name right now. But those, they take about a month before you have to recharge it, and to me, it would just be so much better if I didn't have to charge my watch all the time, especially mine since it's an older one. I don't know if they're doing it so that when they sell the next Ultra or the Series 9 or the Series 10, they could always keep pitching and putting as a perk new longer battery. But when in reality, other companies, other manufacturers are already giving us a month, and it's not just one company. That's what I'm saying. Garmin's one of them for sure, and I can't remember the name of the other watch company, but it's big and running a month without you really having to recharge it. I think that's what Apple, if they really want to win me over on investing on a new watch, because 749, almost $800, that's not cheap for a watch. That's almost what a iPhone is going for. So you're really gonna have to give me a lot for me to reinvest. Although I gotta say, I love the whole Apple ecosystem. How if you have the iPad, the watch, the computer, it just it works. There's no pairing. It's very seamless. There's really not much you could do. So I really like that. And besides that, another watch that came out, the it's a tracker. It's called the Galaxy 5 watch. And I guess the main difference is that it has a bigger screen, just like the Ultra. And this is by Samsung. It says that it could go 80 hours on one charge. So it looks like everyone's trying to push their limit, but even 80 hours, which is roughly what the new iWatch is doing, it's still nothing compared to about a month between both of the watches. I'd still rather have a month without having to charge my phone than just having to charge it every couple days. It just gives you more tracking for your workouts. I'm too happy with Apple to switch to Galaxy. I know that's one of the main competitors, but it says it's a good watch. It's still more a little bit of a everything type of watch than I would say really just for athletes or endurance athletes. The other one that's out kind of newer, it's called the Aurora. ring, and this one's the three. I've seen it. My friend told me about it. He really likes it. I need to ask him which one he has. So I looked it into a little bit in the past, and I looked it into it again because, with the new Apple Watch, I kind of wanted to compare. One thing about wearing a watch when you run or when you're outside, you're definitely going to get that tan. I think if I move this, you're going to see that what they call a farmer's tan. So some people want to get rid of that or at times not wear a watch. So the ring is pretty slick. It comes in four different colors that I saw, and it ranges from $300 to $400, just depending if you. I think the gold and the stealth black is the one that raised us up the price by $100. And they give you a lot of details. I need to look into more exactly what you get, but it's supposed to monitor the new one's supposed to monitor oxygen levels or something like that. And then it tracks your sleep. It's supposed to have better battery, and I would think so with how small it is. And then you can get a lot of additional information on the app with this ring. Some of the negatives that I've heard is part one and part two, or the first two series, pretty much everything was free. And now, besides the ring, if you have the series three, which they're trying to push the people who've bought it in the past to buy the new ones, it's a subscription based, which I understand that's the way you make money. Everybody wants to make money. A lot of companies are going towards subscription based. But then the way I see it is now you're actually paying to get your own data, like your own sleep data, your own medical data, your own how many calories did I burn? And I really wouldn't want to pay $300-400 for that plus subscription to pay for my own information when I can get it from Apple or Samsung or so many or Fitbit. There's so many other trackers that if it's subscription, it's usually for additional features, but not for my personal data. So I would stay away from the ring for now. I don't see no benefit in paying, and I definitely don't want companies to get into the habit of thinking, oh, it's fine to charge them for their own information. I think that's if you're into Web3, you can check out the show I did earlier today on NFT and sports. But that's the whole point of, hey, it's my data. I should have access to it, and now you're gonna charge me to be able to access it through subscription. As I mentioned, it was NFL, another exciting week. I love football so much that I decided to just dedicate a show to football. It's called the Football Examiner, exclusively live here on Fireside. So if you want to check it out, you can click on my profile and you'll see access to that. Besides that, we had the Canelo and Triple G fight. The first fight was a draw, and I actually thought Triple G won that. It's been years since I watched it, but I need to watch it again. Then part two, it was a close fight. The judges gave it to Canelo. And then 6 years later, they had the trilogy. I think this fight would have been a lot more exciting if they had the fight a long time ago. I think even the average fan is getting smarter and tired of the whole boxing. Let's dodge the best fights until we're past our prime. Like by the time we got to see Manny Pacquiao and Mayweather, they were both not the same fighters. In the past, you would always see the top fighters fight against each other, and now it's just avoiding, avoiding, avoiding. So overall, it was a good fight. But then if you think to it, the judge, I think, scored it where if one of the judges, I think, gave one more round to Triple G, it would have been a draw. And they also need to fix the scoring system on the boxing because although I guess Canelo maybe broke his hand or he needs his wrist is giving him problems from what I was reading. He's probably won't return till next year. He didn't look the same. I thought he would look, but then again, Triple G is such a tough guy. I don't think ever been knocked down. So I understand Triple G. Maybe it was Canelo, or maybe it looked like Father Time was finally catching up. He is 40 years old, and I think Canelo's 32. Overall, I watched the fight. I'm still kind of like on it. To me, it was entertaining because I love boxing, both good fighters. But as far as for the fans and the trilogy, I wanted to see this about 6 years ago. So I felt that that fight should have been done sooner than later. And hopefully, someone will step up while Canelo is recovering because right now looks like he really has his career in his hands. He could pretty much call any fight he wants and it'll happen. And who knows where we'll go from there. Oh, speaking of boxing, there's one more thing we could talk about. Jake Paul is going to fight Anderson Silva. If you don't know who Jake Paul is, he is a YouTuber turned fighter turned, I think it's him. I hope I don't mix him up with his brother, WWE star, podcast host. He's really a smart businessman. I think he made 30 million on YouTube last year and 30 million on fighting last year. So some people base who you are based on how much money you make. So if you made just as much money fighting, do you consider him a pro fighter? Well, he's going to fight Anderson Silva, who at his prime was one of the best MMA UFC fighters of all time. As he got older, he wasn't quite the same, but Dana White was kind enough to let him go out the way he wanted to. After that, he's been boxing, and he actually kicked Chavez's son's ass in just straight up boxing. And now Jake Paul is going to fight him. Jake Paul is an athlete from what I've seen. He has power. He did a freestyle wrestling in college. And then as far as a boxer, I've seen him spar against some pro fighters. That guy he was going to fight, I can't remember his name, and they ended up canceling him. Jake Paul released the footage. So I watched some of it. And yeah, he is talented. This will probably be his most challenging match yet. And it's hard to believe that we keep talking about him. But I think as long as he is doing better for, let's say, boxing and fighter pay, because right now the fighters are still upset in UFC about the pay. They are not happy with, let's say, the new contract that Rock, who was never an MMA fighter, he has a contract with Under Armour, and then they did a shoe, and then none of the fighters get any sort of cut from it. So they've all been tweeting at The Rock, and no response from him yet. But the fighters, just from my amateur background in fighting, anytime you put the gloves on, anytime you step into the cage, you're putting your life on the line. I definitely feel that they deserve what they are, the max potential they could get paid, because you hear a lot when they walk away from the sport, the companies don't want to really pay for the insurances, and that goes for, it seems like, the NFL and UFC. I always hear about that. Even in the from what I hear in the military, when you're in it, everybody, yeah, you're a hero, but then when you leave and you're trying to get your benefits, that's when all the companies all of a sudden don't want to pay you what you deserve. So in the meantime, I say one way to kind of try and offset that is by paying them with what they deserve. They're putting their life on the line every time, and I'm for Jake Paul. I think since he's the last 2 years, he keeps talking about fighters' pay. And so the conversation keeps coming up. And even if Dana White tries to brush it off in the press conferences, that whole conversation about fighter pay keeps going up on and on and on. And eventually, hopefully, it'll benefit the fighters. And I would like to see that in boxing as well. That way, we need more stars in boxing, in my opinion. I there's other fighters, but I don't think that the average person knows who they are. And when you compare like the UFC cards versus the boxing cards, the UFC fight cards usually are stacked. You can at least know who the co-main event is, and even the undercards underneath that. And in boxing, you just usually get one main event, and that's about it. And sometimes it's 6 years later. That one I think is scheduled for October. We'll see if it ends up happening. I think it will. Mayweather says that Jake Paul, as long as he keeps fighting MMA guys, he will keep winning, and it'll be an interesting to see. I will probably watch that one as well, and of course, I try and watch anything that has to do with fighting. And once again, thank you everybody for joining me. I will be back next week with all new shows. This has been Athletic Definition, Coach Ray Z. I'm out. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Till next time.